Okay, so today we are going to create an account opening process, and this process will have different actors like branch maker, branch checker, account opening maker, checker, and then there will be routing between these different tasks based on the decisions taken on a relevant task. Um, uh, Apart from creating the process, we are also going to create the relevant business objects which are applicable for this process. And these objects will later be used to design the coach views and the coaches, and it will, reflect the data that is to be captured on various tasks. I mean, the business objects will contain the data that is, taken as input on various tasks. Okay, so let's look at the business objects that we have. We are going to have the request details. Okay, we are going to have the customer info. It will have various fields which can be seen in this sheet. We will have address, we'll have the ID details. I might skip a few, tabs just to speed up things, but this is the basic idea. We can have document tabs as well, where we can capture the documents that are relevant for a particular step. I mean, it can be the identification document, it can be anything. I mean, depending on the requirement of the business process. This is just a demo process, okay? Of course, it will give you an idea of how you can, use this as a base and create your own processes in future. But it will give you a basic idea of how we, design end-to-end processes in BPM and automate the task services. All right, so let's start off. So first of all, you have to create a business process. So you click on this. Basically, this is the web process designer component that I have opened up. And I mean, you'll have this component in your environment as well. We basically have three environments, like we have the process admin console, we have the process portal, and process designer. Process portal is basically used to by the end users to, complete their tasks, access different reports, and I mean, they can complete their task, they can route the task to a different role. When the user in that role opens up his task, he can, take certain actions on the tasks that are there in the inbox, and so on and so forth. So the component that you're seeing right now is the process designer, and it is used basically by the developers to design processes, user interfaces, and reports depending on your business requirements. There is also another console which I'm not going to show in this presentation, which is the process admin console, and it is basically used for the mainly it is used for the user management and group management. You can define different users in your in your business suite. You can define different groups, and you can, then add users in the relevant groups as per your needs. Other than that, process admin can be used to monitor the performance of your processes. It can, show you how much, resources are utilized by a certain, task or any backend services that can be used. It can show you if you are, the environment is working well or not. There are certain parameters that show you that information, but it's not part of this presentation. We are basically going to focus on automating the business process, okay, end to end. So let's add a process first. You click on the process plus button over here, and I clicked on process. Okay, so it gives me an option to define a new process. I can name it as account opening process. Click the finish button. You can see that I have a default inline user task, but this is not what we need. First, I'm going to, define all my lanes over here, which I already told you. We have the branch maker. We can, just drag drop a lane from here, this palette over here. Okay, we can define this lane as branch checker. Then we can have another lane called the account opening maker. And finally, we can have account opening checker. We can have another lane called the system lane. Okay, I think it's there by default, and it can contain all the system tasks you have, which could be any integrations or any email notifications, mobile notifications. All the system services which with which the end users do not interact are classified as system services, and they can be a part of this last lane, which is called a system, and it is uh, assigned to all users. We can select something like system, okay, so that only these services get executed at backend without the involvement of the end users. Okay, so this is an inline task. I can just delete it from here. What we need is we can just drag drop. Okay, by the way, I just defined lanes over here, but I have not done any binding. We don't know the users that are going to perform actions based on what the tasks in these lanes. We are going to configure these lanes afterwards. Let me just define the process first. So I drag drop this task service. I can name it as user task. Okay, and because an end user is going to perform this task, I can name it as enter account information. Okay, and then I can have another task over here which can be named as an inline task. It can be named as branch authorization. Okay, so we can have more tasks, I mean, in this lane as well, but for this demo process, I mean, one task per lane is I mean, sufficient. Okay, it would serve the purpose. Next we have the account opening maker. We can name it as account opening maker review. Okay, or update. Okay, update. And then we have the account opening checker. Let's name it as account opening checker review. So these are the tasks that we are going to implement in this process. There is no implementation at the moment. We are just defining the process flow. Okay, so this whenever the process starts, we want this first task to be initiated. So we are going to connect the start event to the first task. Okay, this like this. Once entry is completed, there can be certain actions taken on this task, like he can cancel the request, he might be want to reject the request, or he might just submit it. Okay, he says that okay, all the information is there and I'm ready to submit the task. So I mean, I'm going to take a decision out of this, and I can simply name it as decision. Okay, this gateway like this. In the journal tab, I named it as decision. We can have multiple paths out of this based on our business requirements, but let's assume that we just have the cancel button right now, and we have the submit option on this task. So we can take out two flows out of it. One is the submit, and the other is maybe the cancellation. On cancellation, maybe we can terminate this process. So we can drag this event from the palette, and we can name it as not this one, sorry, we can drag this one from the palette. Okay, the last one, and we can name it as terminate. Okay, just name it as terminate or cancel, whatever you find I mean, relevant to your requirements. I mean, it's just a name. So I'm just going to connect this. Okay, so this is the cancellation. You click on this line and you can simply rename it as cancelled. Okay, decision is cancelled. Here I say the decision was submit. So the branch maker, this one, he just opened his task and he pressed the submit button. I'm going to show you the buttons later on. I mean, how these actions are incorporated into this task, but let's just consider the flow for now. Okay, so he can either cancel or submit. Once the branch authorization opens his task, he can take two actions. He can either reject it. Okay, he can either reject it or he can submit it. So once this decision is implemented, I mean, we can take two paths out of it, like this: a submit decision and a reject decision. Okay, again we can name it as maybe BA decision or branch authorizer decision. Okay, and it can be submit, or let's call it approve, and it can be reject. Okay, so next, when we come on to the account opening maker review, he can he can just submit it. Okay, let's not have any decisions on this task. Okay, just give him the provision to submit it to the next actor. Okay, he can just make some updates and then he can submit it to the next actor. He just has one option, okay, to move forward. And then we can give the checker the rights to review what he implemented or what he updated. And then we can he can either approve the request, or he can send it back to the branch maker. Okay, it's up to us. I mean, we can give two options as well. We can give him the provision to send it to the branch maker, as well as to the account opening maker. He can, maybe he can have both options. So let's give him both the options. Okay, so I can just make it as user task, this one. Okay, account opening maker. Similarly for this one, I can make it as a user task. Okay, and let's give him the provision to send it back to the account opening maker, or back to the branch maker. Okay, and he can also submit it. Okay, or maybe let's say approve the request. Once he approves, we can have some services over here, maybe to let's just we are going to implement them as system steps. Okay, these can be like posting the account and customer details onto some core banking system. Okay, so let's keep them as system tasks. Okay, because end user is not going to be involved, we are going to probably call some integrations. Okay, if it's possible for this demo, maybe we'll do that later. Okay, so we can say create customer in core banking, or we can call it CBS, core banking system, and then we can call it create account in CBS. Okay, so we can connect this line like this to here. We can join these two system tasks, and then finally we have our end event. We can just drag it from here onto the last lane. Okay, it's fine. I could have gone up as well, no problem, but I mean, just to keep it more readable, I'm going to drag my end event over here, and I have almost completed my flow. Let me just rename this to account opening checker decision. Okay, it's good that you rename all your artifacts as unique. Okay, all the artifacts which you have drag dropped on this process should have unique names, otherwise you'll start getting warnings over here. Okay, they'll start showing warnings, so let's keep them unique. Account opening checker review. So this is going to be submit, or let's call it approve. This one is going back to the branch maker, so we can say return to branch maker, and this one is return to account opening maker. Okay, these are the two decisions we are going to take, or three decisions, right? Approve, return to account opening maker, or return back to the branch maker. So let's see how our process looks like now. Okay, I can just zoom it, reduce the resolution a bit. Okay, so zoom out. If we zoom out this process, this is how it looks. We have the first step, account opening, branch maker. It can either cancel or submit to the branch authorizer. Branch authorizer can reject it or send it to the account opening maker. Account opening maker can simply submit it to the account opening checker. Account opening checker can either send it back to the account opening maker, or he can send it back to the branch maker. All right, using this flow. An account opening checker can either approve sorry, and it can also approve it. Once it is approved, we are going to post the customer and account into the core banking system. So this is how our process looks like, something I did not create earlier. I mean, once I was defining these swim lanes, we can simply bind the users to this swim lane. I mean, for this purpose, what we do is we define basically teams in this process designer. We define a team for each swim lane, and in the team we can add our groups, or we can directly add the users. The best practice is to define those groups on the admin console, add users on that in that group, and simply add that group into your teams. Okay, we're not going to create groups or users in this demo, but I can give you an explanation of how it is done. Let's create the teams for each swim lane. So you click on this plus button. Okay, you click on team. Okay, and then you're going to define a team for branch. Sorry, you're going to define a team for branch maker. Okay, this is your first team. Let's define teams one by one for all these roles, and we can simply bind these teams to the swim lanes. Okay, you have the provision to add users and you have the provision to add groups. When you click plus sign, it will pick up the groups that you have, or groups that you have defined on your process admin console. I have many groups created on the process admin. I can select any of the groups. You can add users as well directly, but the best practice is to define those groups on process admin, add users in that group. Okay, and just select the relevant group from here. Okay, let's, for this demo, just I'll just add a user. Okay, I can add myself maybe. Okay, I've selected my name Samia, and I can add myself as a branch maker. Okay, but I mean, I've told you that you should be selecting a group for each of these teams from the process admin. Okay, let's now, once you have this team, what you can do is you can select this team over here. You click on this lane, you select, and you can simply say branch maker. Okay, so this task is going to be assigned to all the users that are there in the branch maker role. Okay, and how that is done, I mean, if you click on this and you click on assignments, I have done lane and none. I mean, there are different options like last user, round robin, load balance, but if I do lane and none, it is going to define this task to all the users that are there in the branch maker role. We can define team filter services as well. I mean, let's assume that the user who is creating this process belongs to a relevant branch, like let's say branch 001, and you want the task to be assigned to only the users in that branch. So we can give the branch as input to this team filter service, and we can simply get all the users in this particular group, and we can filter them out based on the branch they belong to. Okay, this is something advanced, and we are going to learn it later in our course, but for now, I mean, I was just giving you an idea that we can filter the users further based on what we have available in this particular, I mean, team. I mean, if it is returning users A, B, and C, and you just want A and B to be working on this task, you can write team filter service for that. Okay, team filtration service for that. Okay, so for the branch checker, I mean, again, I'm going to define a team over here. Let's call it branch checker. Okay, and I can simply add myself. Okay, you can add any user you want. You can add any user group. The best practice is to have a group, as I already told, but for this demo I'm going to add myself in every team. Okay, and you can simply click on this lane, and you can select branch checker from here. Okay, now moving on to the next lane, we have account opening maker. Again, we are going to define a team for this account opening maker. And then what we can do is I can simply add myself into this lane. Okay, sorry, the team. And when I click over here, I can select the relevant team, which is the account opening maker. Now the last lane, account opening checker, again I'm going to define a team. We can do it from here as well, new team. Okay, just click on the new button and it will open this pop-up to enter the team name. I can say it's account opening checker. Okay, we finish it. Now this pop-up opens up. I can simply add myself as a user, Samia. Okay, now this happens and I'm going to save it. Okay, so we have defined all our lanes as well. We have defined our teams. We have binded those teams with the lanes. So this completes our business process. Okay. I mean, we are going to implement these decisions as well. We are going to implement these task services as well. But we are going to do this once we create those task services. Task services can be like human task services or system task services. System task services are the ones with which the end users do not interact, like the ones we have over here. And human task services are the ones which are binded to user tasks and with which the end users interact. They enter the data and they can just complete the task, submit it to the next role. So all these which have this user icon, they are all user tasks. Okay, and these are system tasks. They have the system icon. Okay, we are going to look into how we create the system and user tasks, okay, later. The next step, once you have your process, and we are also going to implement these decisions that we have based on our business objects. Okay, this is implementation is not done at the moment. The next step that we have is we create the business object. Okay, that is going to flow from this task to task in the process. It will be used to take our business decisions. It will be used to capture our data. It's very important to define the business object, and for that, I mean, I'm going to show you. I've already shown you this Excel sheet, and these are the business objects that I'm going to define, but I'm going to tell you how to define them and what's the best practice to define them. Okay, so what we normally do is it's better to create a wrapper object first. Okay, the main object that is going to hold all these sub objects. I'll name that main object as account opening. Okay, let's name it as account opening. And here it will just encapsulate or define all the sub objects that we have. Let's define them one by one. Okay, the first one is request details. Okay, so what I do is you have to click this data tab. Okay, you have to select business object and then you can write the request details. Okay, let's define the parameters one by one. The first one is request ID. Okay, request ID, it's a text on UI. That means it has to be a string. Okay, so we'll say request ID. It's already a string selected, but we can we have the option to select from here. Okay, we can select the data type from here. Okay, the first one is a string. The next is reference number. This will also be a string. What's the next one? It's request type. The request type basically can tell us that whether it's a single account, joint account, whatever account types we select. Okay, well, we keep in our business process. Request ID is a unique identifier for your request. Reference number is a more readable form of that request ID. Okay, as per your business requirements, maybe you want to append certain strings to your request ID. Okay, then requester ID is the one who defines your creates your request. Okay, and then we have request start date. It can be a date. Okay, you select a date from here, and then you have the next object starting. Okay, so once you have the request details defined, what you can do is you can close this, you can open your account opening again and just put request details over here, request details. Okay, put it over here and select the data type as the data type of the business object, which is request details. So now the account opening holds the request details object, which is like this. Okay, so next what you do is you define the next business object that you have, which is the customer info. Okay, you can, it's better to close this process. Don't open that many artifacts because there is a limit, and eventually it will tell you, it will ask you to close certain artifacts because the limit has reached. So you open the data tab like this, business object. You can define the next business object, which is customer info. Okay, the customer info, what it has is it has title, then we can skip some fields as well. It's not necessary to incorporate everything. Okay, title, we can have full name, we can have nationality. Okay, let's put all these fields. We can have title means Mr. Mrs. Title, let's name full name. We can have nationality, which has to be a drop down. Okay, so for the drop downs we can use the name value pair, because whenever there is a drop down you have a front end value and a back end value. So let's keep it as a name value pair. Okay, so normally whenever, let's say you have countries, you are showing like the name of the full country, like Pakistan, India, Egypt, whatever the name of the countries, and at the back end, I mean, you are storing the codes, relevant codes for those countries. So it's better to have a name value pair for the lookups. It will store both the front end name, which is displayed to the user, and the back end value. And when we push into the database, normally we are pushing the values, not the names. Okay, so it's better to have it as a name value pair and keep both the values in the business process. But when it comes to database integration, we'll just push the relevant value for that field into the database. We'll come on to the database integrations later. Okay, nationality is done. What's the other field we have? Let's skip the other nationality. Okay, we can have gender, which is, again, it's a string. Okay, and then we can have date of birth, which is a date. Okay, it's a date. What's next? We have disability. Okay, let's skip disability. We can have marital status. Okay, we can keep the next field marital status, which will again be a name value pair, because, or oh wait, let's keep it a string, no problem. Let's keep it a string because it will be a short list. We don't have to have a complete drop down. We can even hard code male, female. There are two genders. We can hard code those in our UI, and one of the values can be stored, the picked values can be stored in a string. So let's not make it a drop down. Industry, residence, language. Okay, let's put all these. Residence, okay, and language. I'm skipping industry. Okay, so this is a short customer info object that we have, and I have mistyped, so I can rename as well, no problem in that. I'll just close this. I'll click over here. I can say this arrow. I'll click this arrow. I'll say rename, please, info. Okay, next I'm going to define this into my main object, which is the account opening. So I'll click this plus icon. I'll say customer info, and I will simply select this as the customer info object. The data type will be customer info. So these are the two objects that I've created. What's the other one? Address. Okay, let's define the address. So I'm going to click plus icon over here, business object, address details. Okay, finish. I'm going to define the parameters one by one, which is address line 1, address line 2, and street. Okay, town, city. Okay, all these fields need to be defined. So let's keep it very simple. Okay, address line 1, address line 2, then we can have this the city, then we can have the street. Okay, and what else? I think it's enough. Okay, we can have the mobile number and email address as well. Mobile number and email address. Okay, so address details again we have defined. The next job will be to put it as an object over here. address details, and then I'm going to select address details from the business objects that are shown in this pop-up. Address details. Okay, this is done. What's the next one? ID info. Okay, we can have this. Okay, ID info. Let's define the ID info. So I'm going to select data from here. I'm going to select business object, and then I can say ID info. ID is basically going to hold the passport number or the national identification of the customer. Okay, ID info. So we can say document name, document number. Document name would basically be whether it's passport or a national ID, national identification. Okay, NIC. Okay, so I can say document name, document number. Maybe the document name will be a radio button. We can select one of the options. Okay, from there. Document name, document number. We can say the issue date, expiry date, and place of birth and country of birth. Okay, let's keep it simple. We can have the issue date, we can have the expiry date. Okay, make them as dates as well. We can have the expiry date, make it as date, make it a date object. Okay, and place of birth, and then we have what else? We have country of birth. Okay, so I think this is it. It's fine for this ID info. We can define again this ID info as a sub object into the account opening main object. Okay, ID info. Okay, this is also done. So what's next? We have this documents. I'm going to handle later. We don't need an object for this one. Okay, financial details tab. Let's have this as well. We can have data, new business object. We can say financial details. Okay, it's best to start it with a capital letter. Okay, the business object name, the parameters is camel case. So we have employment status, whether he's working or employment status maybe could be whether he's a salaried individual or a business individual, or whatever whatever way he's earning. Maybe job title, employment address, net monthly income. We can add these fields as per our convenience for the demo. So we can say maybe the employer name, we can say job title, we can have salary or whatever it's net monthly income. Okay, and initial deposit amount. Because he's opening an account, he's definitely going to submit something, so we can capture this as well. Okay, and net monthly income will definitely be a decimal, and this one too. Okay, we are just keeping the objects very simple for our convenience. I'm not exactly following what is there in this sheet. Okay, the next one will be, we have to add it as a sub object as well, like this, financial details. Okay, and the data type will be financial details. The last one is account additional info. Basically, these are account details. Okay, basically one customer can have multiple accounts. Okay, so we are going to make it as a list. Okay, so for this I'm going to first define a business object named as account details. Okay, and it will have like a table, or for this I mean for the table that we have, I mean we can have account name, account currency, account type. We have to add this as a list in this account details object. And why this itself cannot be a list, because there are other fields as well, like we want to request debit card or not, what's the card type you want to select, what's the name on the card, what's the delivery address, because there are other fields as well which will be part of this table. What we can do is maybe we can add these fields first, okay, and then we'll look into the table. So account details is the object. We can say request debit card. If it says okay, I want to request a debit card, then he has to enter the card type, the name of the card, the delivery address. Okay, okay, and we can skip, we can delivery address, we can skip request checkbook. Okay, we can skip this, and we can have this account type, account currency. This will be a table, basically a list. So we can say this, we can add a new data object, name it as um, accounts list. Okay, and what it will have is it will have the account type and the account currency. Again, account type will be a name value pair, because there can be multiple accounts and we want to add it as a drop down, and selected value should be here. So we'll keep it as a name value pair. We want both the selected name and the relevant value that the account holds. Maybe it can be a code. Okay, account type and account currency. Currency also should be a name value pair. Okay, so this is the account list, and when we open the account details now, what we do is we add it like this, account list, and we select the data type as account list. I told you that we need to have multiple accounts for a single customer, so we will just add it as a list. Right, it can have a saving account, current account, and relevant currencies for that account. It will be stored as a list. So basically this is our account details object. It will have the options to whether we want to request a debit card or not. If it is selected, then we'll have these three fields: card type, card name, delivery address, which will be shown on the UI. User has to enter those fields. It will be mandatory. And then we have this account list, which is it will be a table on the UI, and user will have the provision to add multiple accounts into this account list. Okay, I think this almost completes our definition. I need to define it over here as well, account details, and it will be like this, account details. Okay, sorry, account details. So, and if we just expand it, you're going to see everything: account, request, debit card, and everything, and even the list as well. Okay, so once we have defined the business objects, I mean the next step is you have to define your business object into your process. Okay, you will have to add it into your process. So I'll simply open my process now, and what you can do is you can define this as an input. Okay, because I'm going to populate this process using an ad hoc task, an independent task, and I'm going to populate some of the fields in this account opening once I initiate the process. Okay, so this can be account opening, and its data type can be account opening. So if I initiate it from the outside using the ad hoc task, outside means I mean same task in business in this process designer, but it will be an independent link. I'll teach you how to create that link, but once that is created, I mean whatever the user inputs, maybe we can take one or two fields on the task, and we can pass them as an input to this object or this process. Okay, so this instance will be launched. The first task will be active. A user can take action on the task. and this object will be populated at that point with some of the fields that we send from that ad hoc task. Okay, so that's about it for this session. I mean, we have covered the business process. We have seen how to, define teams, bind them to the lanes. We have seen how to define business objects and sub objects, and we have learned how to add that as a variable, as an input variable into the business process. Output we normally do not use. It is used whether when we have linked processes, or a process is contained within another process that does some manipulation, and we need to output the business object that is manipulated and send it to the parent process. So that's a complex scenario. I mean, that is when the output is used. Private is used when we need to do some manipulation within the process, like maybe we have a field called ABC. We manipulate it further. We change it to DEF, right? So we can have private variables. We can have we can store the results of. I mean, maybe we need to add up two fields and store the result, and that result is used to take a decision. So we can have private variables for that purpose. Expose process variables. These are basically, again, we can say there are certain variables, like let's say we have some limits, the number of accounts that can be added. Okay, we have a limit that more than 5 accounts cannot be added for the customer. We can define expose process variables, okay, from here, like this. Okay, we can define expose process variables. We can attach them to the process, and later when we are doing some manipulation, we can check the value of that expose process variable. Let's say the limit. If the limit is 5, maybe we have to stop the user from proceeding further, or just he has to reduce the number of accounts he has created. So expose process variables, and why these are important, because maybe in future you want to change this limit to 5, from 5 to 4. uh, Whenever you expose something, you can do it directly from the process admin. I mean, from the server itself. You don't need to come and change your code again to change the limit from 5 to 4. These expose process variables are available in the admin console once your process is deployed, and you can simply give admin the rights to edit this variable, and he can change the value from 5 to 4. From environment to environment, I mean, when you are on UAT or production, you can simply ask the admin to access this expose variable and change the relevant value. It would not require any deployment. You don't have to deploy your process again. It's just a configuration that is done from the outside. I mean, from the server itself. Okay, the admin console itself. You don't need to change or your code or redeploy anything. This is a very good use of the expose process variables. Even you have the environment variables. The environment variables also hold the same purpose. I mean, suppose you have some APIs that you are using, you have the URLs of those APIs, and it is something else on UAT, different on the production. So when you deploy, you can access the environment variables to the admin console, and you can change them depending on your environment. Like on UAT, the URLs will be different. On production, it will be different. Similarly, if I mean you have some database integrations, you can add the name of your you know name of your database. Okay, your JNDI, you can define that over here, and if when you move on to production, maybe you want to change it, you can simply access the environment variable from the admin console and change that variable. You don't need to redeploy your code. Okay, this is the and maybe the expose process variables are used mainly to capture the variables which hold business value. Okay, and environment variables are maybe used to hold the URLs mainly, and the JNDI names, the databases, maybe some email addresses as well. Okay, I mean, they can be used interchangeably, but it's best to have EPVs for variables that hold business value, and environment variables for any API configurations or database configurations. Okay, I think that's about it for today. In the next session, I'll be teaching you how to create coach views using these business objects. Once we have the coach views, we are going to create coaches. Those coaches will be then added on to, will be incorporated in human task services, and eventually those human task services will become part of your business process. Okay, thank you so much. And please practice this on your own as well. Create a similar process, try to replicate it, so that in the upcoming sessions you can keep up pace with the upcoming sessions, and whatever I teach you, you can replicate that on your own environment. Thank you all.